and has done over 1,000 dives all over the world. He finds pure joy just being and breathing underwater. Underwater photography has truly changed Steve's ability to appreciate and connect with the natural world. All right, in the meanwhile, are you guys ready? Cheryl, the stage is all
All
yours.
right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Now, if you are not one of our friends, most everybody here is our friends, but if you're not one of our friends and randomly walked in, this panel is really special because unlike every other panel that will happen at MIDE, none of us are professional in the diving industry. We're all actually corporate people, normal corporate people who happen to love photography, and we hope that we could inspire you if you were ever thinking about doing underwater photography. Okay? No questions yet, Imran. Patience, patience. Okay, anyway, I'll start by introducing myself really quickly. So, as what the MC said, my name is Cheryl. I work in a company called Grab, and I've been diving since 2011. And I got my first underwater camera on my first dive trip, third dive trip actually. So I've been taking photos for more than 10 years. And my favorite underwater subject to shoot is frogfish.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Steve. I'm actually a corporate person as well. I was doing IT solutions. I started diving in the year of 2012, and I started my photography. And when I started photography, I was just like catching fish ID until I met a bunch of divers that are auto photographer. That is where I started my serious photography in year 2015. So my favorite subjects to shoot underwater is turtle. I love turtles, any kind of turtles, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is QJ. Thank you. It's good to see all smiling faces, familiar faces here, and I'm happy to share the stage with my friends Cheryl and Steve. I actually started scuba diving in year 2012. And 1 year later, I picked up a new hobby, underwater photography. And yeah, it's 10 years, amazing journey. And I'm very excited to share with you my journey for the past 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we'll start with Steve. Steve, can you share with us how your underwater photography journey began? And tell us a bit more about your first underwater setup.
All right, so when I started to move into underwater photography, I was like, I'm going budget. That time I was still a working person, just in the corporate world, wasn't have a lot of budgets to move into photography. So I decided to get myself a second-hand compact camera, which is using a S95. The camera that I'm using is S95. And also that time, I remember my first trip to Lembe. Then my friend Cheryl was like, Steve, you need to get a strobe. You need a strobe because I've been shooting this with this compact camera, S95, with the alkaline housing without using any strobe for a while. Then when I started to travel to Lembe, Cheryl was like, you need to get a strobe. So I bought the strobe, and I didn't know what the strobe is for. So I bring the strobe, went to Lembe, together with a group of photographers.
Yep, okay. So maybe we have some of your your photographs taken from your first camera. Maybe tell us a bit about the picture.
Sure. So these are some of the photos that I took with my S95. Okay.
Next. Okay.
So even I would say that a camera is just a device. I think that at the end of the day is how you actually use the function that you have in the photo of the photo camera itself to shoot the photo. As you can see, even a compact camera, I can shoot the goby like that. Then the next one you can see.
Next. Console with.
This is another octopus that I took during the Lembe trips. And not only S95 compact camera can shoot macro, but I also shoot wide angle using the compact camera. As you can see, there's another photo that I shoot using S95 during that.
Next.
Yep. This is the jellyfish leg that I took in Kakaban.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's all. I mean, so that's why I mean that I started with S95 compact cameras.
Okay. So as for me, I started out shooting with a mirrorless camera. I got myself also a second-hand camera. It was EPL2. And when I got it, I still remember, I got it from an online forum called Laoyat. And it was very, very affordable because it came with a kit lens as well as the Olympus underwater housing. And this is the first photo that I took from, we're having a bit of technical problems with this thing. Can you go back one? Sorry. Next. Okay, never mind. So anyway, this is a picture that I took using that camera. It's a mantis shrimp with eggs. Next. And even with, I took this camera with natural light, and it was in very murky waters, and I was using the kit lens. So it's pretty funny, but it is possible to do wide angle even with the most basic of setups. And next we can move on to QJ. So tell us a bit about your underwater setup when you got it started, and maybe some of your pictures.
Basically, before I started underwater photography is because I wanted to show my friend what I've seen underwater. So sometimes it's very difficult to tell, hey, I saw the stream, but what kind of streams? So that's the reason why I bought my first camera, Olympus EPL5, then with a kit lens. And for me, the purpose is just point and shoot. It's not for macro or whatsoever. I don't know what is macro and wide angle. And slowly, you see your friends' photos from Facebook. Back then, we don't have Instagram. And then you slowly want to improve. And you start to ask your friends. And that's actually a very, very dangerous part. And you start to invest. Yeah. And these photos are taken with my first camera. I took this photo in Lembe. So it's a squid egg. So it's very unique. It's transparent. And you can see the baby squid inside. This is before they born, of course. And the eggs is actually in a capsule size. And the next one, this is the burrowing octopus that I took from Tulamben, I think 2-3 years ago. And you can't believe it, the depth is only 2 meters from shore. And I spent about 30 minutes with it, and it's so beautiful and amazing. Yeah. This is one of my favorite dive sites in Malaysia, Mata King in Sabah. So yeah, I just went to Mata King Jetty again this year, and it's still amazing. The jack is getting bigger and bigger, the school. Yeah. Yeah.
So congratulations, QJ, on winning a photo competition recently.
Thank you.
So maybe, so QJ just won the LBO competition in the macro category, which is part of the Mid-Day event. So well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so, and this is not the first competition you've won, right? You've won several others as well. So how did your, tell us a bit about how do you improve your underwater photography skills, and maybe share 3 photography tips for new photographers.
I think first thing first, especially for new photographers, I think to understand your camera is very important. To understand your camera, what your camera can do, what is the limitations and so on. And also to understand the housing, because I can see a lot of friends or new photographers underwater, they don't know what to do with the housing and they don't know the settings. So that is the first thing you must get it right first. And secondly, to practice and practice and practice. Because a lot of people think that we must practice underwater, but that is not true. We can actually practice on land before we go down to the water. I remember many years ago, me and my mentor, Nuru, she came to my house. We practiced how to shoot background and bokeh at my home. So we practice before we go down to the water. And the third one, don't be shy to ask. Ask for constructive feedback. And of course, you have to be prepared to get the bad feedback sometimes. So from there, you can improve slowly, definitely. Yep.
And Steve is also, a champion in several underwater competitions. He's the winner of the raw competition for both wide angle and macro, back to back, so 2 years in a row. Yeah, we have on stage some really honorable speakers. Maybe you can also share some of your photography tips.
I think in terms of photography, to me, it's actually, for me, I always, whenever I shoot, right, when I look through my viewfinder, I have some quotes of life that actually in my mind, like every time I shoot a photo, I will have something that inspire me that, let's say, for example, work hard, play hard, or whatever, that kind of photo. I will try to relate my pictures to some of the quotes that I can have. I always, if you follow me on my IG, every time when I post a photo, I do attach with a quote. So the quote will mostly relate to my photo as well. So that is number one. Secondly, is actually, I see a lot of others, photographers' photo as well to inspire me. So to see that, okay, some subject you can actually shoot from different angle. Then at the same time, you talk to people surrounding you to see that they can give you a lot of tips and see that how you can make your photo better. And last but not least, I think that is very important is actually, like what 𝐏𝐀𝐍 mentioned, you can ask anybody in terms of photography. There is no limit that you are the new photographer or you're already expert, seafood level, right? You can ask anybody because photography is open for anyone.
Okay. I think for me, I also think diving with other photographers is really good. I think, the good thing about diving with other photographers, besides being able to learn from them, is generally the trip is set up for photographers. So I think that's my tip. Okay, so,
Cheryl, I think you forgot to mention, what is the basic to get a good photo?
I mean, definitely good buoyancy, right? So I think good buoyancy is the most fundamental thing. And I think for me personally, I started focusing on macro first, got all of that settings right, and then only started shooting wide angle. So by then, I understand my camera a lot better. Okay, so many people say, one of the things that we hear a lot from some of our friends, who shall not be named, but a lot of our friends say that there aren't many photography opportunities in Malaysia. So Malaysia is not such a great dive site. But, I think you guys are going to show us, what you have, your favorite photos from around Malaysia. So maybe we can start with Steve.
So this is my latest photo that I took from a recent trip to Sipadan. So these are the bump head that I shoot in Sipadan recently. So I was lucky to see this bump head on top of this cabbage coral. So I managed to capture the photo during the last 2 weeks I was in Mabu. Yeah, this is a photo I took last week, 2 weeks ago. And this is a photo that I took in Tango Island. Even though that, when you go to a dive site, when you jump down, you still get a lot of, even that, you can shoot fish or you can shoot the landscape or you can shoot the coral. I think that is a very good ways to practice photography. Like for example, everybody, like sometimes they just jump down and say, oh, no fish, there's nothing to shoot. But there are a million things that you can shoot. Corals, even some reef fish will help to improve your photography as well. And this is one of the photo that for macro. I took this photo in Malaysia as well. It's in Mabu Island as well. It's one of the flamboyant that I took, yeah.
Okay, 𝐏𝐀𝐍?
Well, this is a macro photo from Lembe. So,
Supposed to be Malaysia.
so no, sorry. In Mabu, sorry.
Mabu
Because
or
I want to make
Malaysia,
fun of
wait.
him. So in Mabu.
Which dive site?
Awas. It's Awas dive site, yeah. So last year, So we went down to the dive site with my guide, and then he just showed me, hey, this is a sea pants. You should look closer to it. And you know, we are getting older and older. Sometimes we can't see. And Malaysia guides, some of the guides, they are so good in spotting. And thankfully, the guide can show me these beautiful creatures. Yeah. And this is one of my favorite photos. I took this in Pom Pom Island, also in Sabah. So this is a moment shot to me because from far I can see the turtle is actually preparing or ready to actually, I'm not sure it's attacking or eating the anemone. So as you still can see, there's a Nemo up there.
It's a great photo.
And the last one is the School of Jack. I just came back from Sipadan, I think 1 month ago. So this is the latest photo that I had from Sipadan trip. Yeah.
So for my photos, I've decided to focus everything on East Coast. Is it East Coast? So Peninsula Malaysia. Because I guess where most people go to Sabah and say that's a great place to take photos. So this was actually taken in Tioman last year in April. And yeah, I mean, I think it's possible to shoot many things. And this is just one of those that I took in Tioman. This is also taken in Tioman, fairly common subject. I think it's a squat lobster baby in a, star, star. Yeah, so it's fairly common. And I took this in Redang,
nice
split shot of juvenile turtle. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I think what we're trying to say is definitely there's a lot of photography options in Malaysia. You don't have to go, very far. And you don't even have to go to Sabah, actually. Even in East Coast in Peninsular Malaysia, there's a lot of great photography options. Okay, so QJ, many people say that, diving and underwater photography is an expensive hobby. And, the truth is it can be, right? But what are your top cost-saving tips?
Cost-saving tips. I think the price range is very wide. It can be 2,000 up to a few 100,000. But if let's say your objective is just point and shoot, you can actually buy a compact camera or a used camera first. Then slowly you upgrade. Depends what is your objective. Yeah. So my suggestion is, to save cost, maybe you can start with a second-hand or third-hand camera. Like what I'm using, even though I'm now using a DSLR camera, but I bought second-hand lenses. That's okay. Yeah.
Steve?
I think in terms for me, I think in terms to start a photography, I think first thing first, you need to have the mindsets that you want to seriously move into photography. Then, of course, when you started at time, you wasn't very sure. Second hand or even third hand is an option to start photography. So you can start with any model, like you can go for compacts, or you have a little bit more budget, you can go for mirrorless. Then after that, start shooting and start asking and start going trips. Then, slowly, eventually, I feel that, you will really know that whether do you really like underwater photography.
Okay, we have a bit of time, so we're going to take a question from the audience. Okay, anybody want to ask a question? Okay, yes? Yes?
Hello, everyone. I just follow you guys on Instagram as well, so like low-key expecting a follow back. My name is Darius. As someone who's not you doing underwater photography professionally as an underwater photographer, and you say like you have a normal corporate job like a lot of people, what is your justification on upgrading and buying a new gear? For example, like I bought a new gear just before the pandemic. a brand new set of camera, and pandemic happens, and then suddenly, you're not using it for a bit. And then after a couple of years, my camera right now is too late to be upkeep. Like, do you still do a lot of, like, I want it or I need it? Is like, what makes you spend on the new gear? Or like, when do you upgrade? And second, I think, like the last one, what is your biggest gear regret purchases?
Okay, maybe I will start first. So for me, personally, I always use my camera until I feel that it's reached its maximum capability. Because taking good photos partially is your own skill and partially is the equipment. So I will take a lot of photos until I'm sure that the only thing holding me back is not my skill, but the camera itself. And because I don't dive full time, that takes many years, right? So a lot of my cameras, I use it for many, many, many years. And I invest in as good quality as possible, not necessarily like the most high-end range, but something that is, like, I wouldn't buy a camera where I have to keep changing the battery because that results in possible leak. So I'll try and do something like, as comfortable as I can afford, and I'll try to use it until it is truly the camera and not my skill that limits me from taking photos.
To me, if I want to upgrade my camera or anything of my camera, usually I will set a KPI for myself. So I won't just upgrade just like that. Even though I have the money or I have the budget, I won't do it. So I will set a 6 months goal or 12-month goal, what I can achieve in my life, or certain target for myself. If I achieve that, then I will kind of reward to myself. Yeah. And secondly, when I want to make my wife happy, then I buy a new things, so that my wife can share with me, not the cost, but the cameras and so on. And the biggest regret, what was the regret? I think, honestly, the past 10 years in this underwater photography, there's no regrets. It's so amazing. Yeah, no regrets.
So for me, I have similar like Cheryl. So like I started my photography with S95. I shoot since I got my camera after my third or fourth trip of dive. Then I was shooting since 2015. I was really serious into photography. I was using my S95 until 2017, so where I feel that this camera has limited my moving on skill. So I decided that when Cheryl, I actually got my second camera from Cheryl. So I actually bought her third-hand DSLR camera and sold it to me in 2017. I was shooting using that Nikon D7000 for 6 years until that I feel that it's time for me to move on to the next step. So I just upgraded my camera like 2 years ago, yeah. So as for regret, I think that every time I look at my bank account, I feel regret. But when I look at the photo, I feel that, okay, I did something right for my life, yeah.
Okay, one last question. Okay.
Guys, awesome pictures. I've only seen like most of Cheryl's work. I've never really explored into underwater photography before, but looking at the both of the other speakers really inspired me a lot. And I think everyone should give them another round of applause. Come on, they really deserve a big round of applause, guys. Okay, so I have 2 questions. Okay, being a land photographer, when I say land, I mean I'm a studio photographer. I do a lot of commercial work with Bob. From an underwater photographer's perspective, how do you plan your shoots? Because I see all these amazing photos, but how do you even get them in the first place? Like, for example, the one with the prawn and it was purple, that shot that you took, that was so good, but I cannot imagine in my head, like, how do you get to that point? Can you like explain, all of you perhaps have like a process of how you get from the beginning to the end result? Like, can you just explain that process to me? Because I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much.
Sometimes when we are underwater, it's quite challenging for us to shoot because the water move, you face some current and so on. So we need a very experienced dive guide, to be honest, especially for macro. And you need the guide to understand where are the creatures, where are the habitat and so on. And in order to get a good shot, you must understand the creature's behavior. So some people go down and their buoyancy is not good, and then, you kalang kabut a bit, then you might not able to focus, not even able to focus. So to me is practice, and you calm yourself down, and then you look surrounding the creatures, what you can do, and the composition is very important. The setting, the fundamentals, as long as you are there, you understand the fundamental, I think everybody will be okay. And the lighting is the biggest challenge to me right now. Yeah. So sometimes we try and error, but once you get used to it, you will get it very fast. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I don't really plan for my dive whenever things that I should, but I practice one things because I have very good mentors along my underwater photography journey. So I listen a lot to them because I used to be a very overreacted or overexcited divers. I was like, look at the subject, I was like, I need to shoot. I was like, all right, then everybody was like, calm down. So eventually I feel that, for now when I take any photo, if you're more calm, you tend to get a better photo. And you are more, that you have a lot of time to plan. So if you are too overexcited about one subject, at the end of the day, when you came out from water, you look at the camera and like, oh my God, why is it this, why is it that? So when you are calm, you have many times to look through your settings, to look through the cameras, what can you do? Like for example, you can play with your aperture, play with lighting. There's all kind of things that you can play with, yeah.
I think for me, 80% of my shots are unplanned, meaning that, it's nature, it happens. You just look at, okay, where's the sun, some basic stuff. And then, like try to position your strobe and just take that moment. And then the other 20% is usually pictures where you kind of know what that dive site is like. Like for example, this picture, I knew that there is an opportunity for a split shot. So I did use a big dome, which I seldom use to take this photo, or if it involves another person. So sometimes I get people to like model or pose, so that's a bit more planned. But otherwise, I think majority is just about understanding your camera and trying to compose it. Yeah? Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate all of you for coming and listening to us. And thank you to my co-conspirators, because I didn't want to do this alone, so I managed to convince my friends to join me as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, once again, thank you very much to all our panelists on this topic, which is all about underwater photography by people with day jobs. Thank you.